What's happening, family? Once again, I want to thank everybody out there for your support from 2019 and its continued support in 2020 here at Big Boss Filmworks. Thank you for the support and love you shown my brother over at True Crime Stories, Eddie Jr.'s channel. And we're just happy. We're happy and thankful for the support. But what I've been noticing is that, and it's a good thing, a lot of the people who follow us on YouTube have not actually checked out these projects that started this whole thing. And that was the book, the original book, Motown Mafia, the Memoirs of a Kingpin's Kid, and then the documentary that followed it up, Motown Mafia. And that's cool. So I'm telling you, if you guys kind of like what we're carrying on YouTube, but to really get the full effect, you probably want to check out some of that stuff. And again, that stuff's all available on Amazon. But what I wanted to talk about this afternoon was just some childhood memories of growing up next to the Fat Man and you know, me and Eddie as kids growing up together, and how that actually all came about, right? So in March of 1973, the cover of the Detroit News read, "Neighborly Partners in Real Estate," and it goes on about Eddie Jackson, quotes his age. He's 29 at this time. My dad, Courtney Brown, 32. And the question they ask are they neighbors in real estate, or are they neighbors in the criminal activity? To quote unquote, both Jackson and Brown say they are business partners in real estate, but neither will reveal any details about their activities. Federal authorities are a little more specific. They say the two men are among Detroit's principal active narcotic suppliers. That's from the Detroit Free Press, April the 16th, 1973. So how'd that come about that they came to be neighbors? And you might be thinking, why would two kingpins live next door to each other? And why is Eddie, we'll go through some of this, they're going through calling them, the big man lives in the Posh Fortress and all this.
All of it was paid for before we ever met the people in New York. He owned our house in Southfield, that's paid for in cash. He owned 2 blocks, the whole block on each side of the block, all the houses down 2 blocks. So he owned 2 whole blocks of houses. He owned 4 apartment buildings, 1 in Geneva, 1 on Oakman, 1 on Hancock, and 1 on 6 Mile. He owned a car wash, he owned a smoke shop, he owned a restaurant, he owned a pool hall, and it was one more I got to think of it. I know he had a gas station.
And a lot of
and now that's what the $500,000 taxes was paid on. Now each 6 months he had to pay $250,000 worth of taxes. So each year he's paying $500,000. And this I know he did for 8 years straight, while giving $50,000 a month to the Shrine of Black Madonna through Milton Henry, and throwing away $20,000 to his customers at the end of the month.
My client is a businessman. Mr. Brown and Mr. Jackson have paid better than $450,000 in income tax. I think that's more than some of the corporations, Shell, Atlantic Richfield, and a few of the others. Now, for Mr. Leff, who's in charge of the task force to try this case in the newspaper and get the public sentiment against these two gentlemen, I think that's reprehensible. Mr. Jackson has legitimate income on which he pays income tax.
So he's giving away $70,000 a month, throwing it away. He's giving it to the Black Panthers to feed young kids breakfast in the morning. So this man is throwing away $70,000 a month. Every 6 months, he's got to pay $250,000 in taxes.
Mr. Jackson, it's alleged that just 6 years ago you were earning a little better than $3 an hour as an auto production worker. Just how did you come to acquire this home in Southfield and your other business interests, your automobiles?
Well, I think the law states, that you have to file your income. If I tell you that, then you know my secret, But as long as I file my income, and I think this is what the law states, and I do that.
Why is him and my dad living next door to each other? Well, we talk about it again, like a lot of the stuff you really are kind of want to know the details, and yet until, especially to Eddie Jr. actually ever writes and gets the crowd pleaser. So stay on him about that. We've been on him for 10 years to get his book out there, but that's gonna happen. But we go into Motown Mafia, a great little story. So Eddie's kind of already blown up, and my dad early in this saga is still waffling between driving the bus and coming to work for Eddie full time. So he's finally quit driving the bus. Eddie then made him his number 2 man, and he's doing good. Eddie's already moved to Southfield, already knocked down his house, rebuilt it, laid it out, Olympic-sized swimming pool, all the stuff that the media, of course, would go on to chronicle and cover. And as my dad tells me, so one day, and this is a tribute to Eddie and just how generous a man he was and how good he was to the people that worked for him. So he's riding with my father, and he used to call my father Berman, and he was like, hey Berman, your man lonely out here in the suburbs around all them people. I need some company. Why don't you move out to Southfield with me? And my old man is like, Eddie, I work for you, and I can't afford, I'm making good, I'm saving money, I'm doing good. He's living on the northwest side of Detroit at the time. He's like, I'm swell, man, but I ain't got that kind of bread yet to go live in Southfield out there with you. And Eddie basically tells the man, look, I don't want to hear that shit. The dentist next door to us got the house for sale, and you need to buy that. And the old man's like, I can't pull this off. Now, Pop says, he's looking back, times, he's like, obviously Eddie pays him, so Eddie knows how much he makes. Eddie knows how much the house next door to him costs. He didn't just laid out and furnished this house in Southfield. He already done ran the numbers of what he talking about, what it's gonna cost. So he tells the old man, I'll tell you what, Berman, do this. Next package that come in, you take $200,000 and then you buy the house next door to me. Now can you afford to live in Southfield? Now this is $200,000 in 1973 that he just given his man because he wanted his man to live next door to him. That's equivalent to about $2 million today's money. Well, you can't get $200,000 out of these guys now, no way, but just for real, so that we know, in all jokes aside, $200,000 in 1972 is all of $2 million today's money, right? So Pops is like, well, yeah, Eddie, if you tell me that the next bag to come in, the first $200,000 to come in, take it and go buy the house, I guess I can afford to live in Southfield. And he does. Next bag comes in, old man does what Eddie instructs him to do, the first $200,000 that comes in, he takes it, he goes to it was a old Jewish dentist living next door to Eddie at the time, before we bought the house. And it's a little funny story. So Eddie and my mom, because this is, I guess, if this hit the newspapers in 32. My dad was 32 when this thing hit the paper, so he must have been like 30 years old when he knocks on this guy's door. And at this time, the neighborhood where Eddie's moved into, Northland Gardens, Southfield, had been voted the most exclusive, in vogue suburb or subdivision in America. So, all the Motown people, NBA stars, big shot business people were living out there. So my mother and father go knock on Eddie's neighbor's door, this dentist, and says, hey, I heard your house was for sale. And as the story goes, the guy's like looking through the crack of the door. He don't even want, he just sees this young black couple at a time when black people did not live in Southfield, at his door talking crazy. And he asks my parents, you was talking about buying my house, where are your parents at? And my father kind of chuckles and says, we are the parents. And he says, but anyway, my friend next door, Mr. Jackson, said, and he's like, as soon as he said Eddie's name, the door opened wide. The old dentist is like, oh, your friend's a Mr. Jackson. Oh, please come right on in. And all of a sudden, old man don't know no better. They discuss price, and the old man's like, yeah, in fact, I can pay you for the house now in cash. The dentist is like, oh, do not bring in $80,000 or whatever into my house right now. You got to get a cashier's check. We got to officially close that. But again, that's a trip. And of course, that would change the trajectory of my life, my sister's life, my mom's life, everybody's life. A lot happened because of Eddie's generosity that day and setting my old man up with some living next to him. So shout out to the fat man. The trickle still, the dominoes still fall from that. Because then of course we ended up moving to Southfield and growing up, being educated in the suburbs. Met a whole lot of people, did a whole lot of things. And besides the newspapers loving to give our address. That was crazy, Lou. They was giving out our home address in the newspaper.
Yeah.
These people, man, horrible. Minnesota cover story, news, early 70s. But anyway, good story. Growing up next to the fat man. Holla at your man. Make sure you like, subscribe, share. Keep this thing going. Peace.
Big Boss Filmworks and Big Boss Books presents Courtney Robert Brown Jr.'s follow-up to the book Motown Mafia. Motown Mafia, Big Man on Campus.
My internship was kind of in how the world of international finance and international criminal activities overlap.
Cory Black Sr. wanted Cory to go to school to bring legitimacy to the family, but Cory had other plans. While in college, with the help of his friends and his girlfriend, he starts and grows a successful drug operation.
5 minutes later, two agents, now I know they were agents, but at the time I see two guys go to the right, another two guys start walking towards me. They stop at my seat and they go, "Grab your bags, DEA, come with us." Needless to say, this is not the fun part of being an intern.
Cory finds himself conflicted with his responsibility to running the family business and his obligation to his college studies. However, he'll have to make things work in his favor if he wants to remain the big man on campus. The names have been changed to protect the guilty and the innocent.
I'm taking economics and business 101 and marketing, and your economic teacher's telling you about a business plan and how you get a small business loan. And, it's kind of the hypocrisy of the world, because I'm like, that ain't how the real world works.